Jordan Page bringing us in. And all right, so we are back here live on the Big Plantation. This is a guest segment of our show. And good thing that we were talking about, things like religion and stuff like that before the break. It's a great segue for our guest, comedian, host of the Panic Hour, huge marijuana activist out of Philly, ordained minister, N.A. Poe. How's it going, N.A. Poe? Make sure you hit this guy up for wedding ceremonies.
Good, guys.
What up, Poe?
Bring your kids around him.
How you guys doing? Good?
We're doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. It's been one hell of a week for me, to be honest.
I'm willing to bet. Now, just before we get into it, why don't you give our audience who may or may not know just a background of what you've been kind of facing this week?
Well, actually today, Mike, and what's up, Moses? Today's the 1 year anniversary of Smoke Down Prohibition. The very first one was held last year at this time. At that time, it was just a fun protest where people smoked marijuana openly. And then on May 18th, I was arrested with Adam Kokesh and put in federal detention and charged with assaulting federal officers. So I actually got that down to some misdemeanors, even though it didn't happen at all. And this Friday, I was sentenced in court on those charges and sentenced to 1 year probation. But a lot of my First Amendment rights were upheld during this trial. It was a very bullshit type of thing where they were, stalking YouTube and Facebook. There was literally 15 YouTube videos submitted by the government. And they were trying to use the way I spoke about cops and the way I spoke about the law as, a way to incriminate me. And the judge, one of the nicest things anyone's ever said about me, he closed with the being a thorn in the side of law enforcement and the National Park Service is not illegal. And I just thought that was a beautiful sentiment. I'm going to have to, be on probation for a year. I'm going to have to not smoke weed. But for everything they tried to fuck me with and everything that they've went through to try to shut down this protest, Mike, you've been at a bunch of them. The fact that a year later they really tried to nail us, and they barely got shit. And now we look forward to the trials of Don DeZarn and Chris Goldstein on Thursday, which these guys are being tried in federal court for smoking a joint. So, we live in interesting times.
Now,
really
Poe, I had a question for you. Your partners over there at Panic Hour had alluded to a transaction between you and the Assistant Attorney General, I believe, or District Attorney. Could you let us know a little bit of how that went? Well, it was, there was a point when I was testifying. My lawyer put me on the stand, and for one straight minute, I just locked eyes with this fuck. And we did like this staring contest type of thing. And then, I bailed out of it, but I didn't bail out of it in the way oh, you stared me down. I bailed out of it I'm done with you, motherfucker. So then he got up to cross-examine me, and he was very petty at the beginning of it. He said, oh, we cleaned up very nice for today, didn't we? And I just shut him down. I shut him down multiple times throughout his little cross-examination, and about halfway through the cross-examination, I looked up and his hands were shaking. So, I knew at that point I had him on the ropes. It was very interesting for me to be on the stand. You guys know that I'm a performer. Moses, you are a performer, and I guess this is performing, Mike. So, being on that stand after a minute or two, man, I was settled in. I felt like I was doing a show, to a certain extent. I was doing the show, for my life. I wasn't fighting for my life in any way, but I was fighting for myself, and I was fighting for, the First Amendment and for freedom. So to be able to take a federal prosecutor with my high school education and stick it right up his ass on the stand, there was a point in my testimony where he literally sunk into his seat and sighed. So it was beautiful.
It was fun.
What is the chances of getting the transcripts from this and turning it into a play?
Oh, dude, it's funny. You're not the first to say that. We are working on getting the transcripts, and then we're going to go through them and see how interesting they are, because I already ran it through Steve Miller. A lot of times with this stuff,
you think it's funny while it's happening, or if you're there, you know what I mean? You don't know how it looks in the long format. But, I mean, this is a trial where memes of my bearded dragon were put into evidence. So, I mean, the absurdity of the whole entire thing may warrant a play.
That definitely sounds like the makings of something for Broadway. So, I mean, would you say that, like, because I know I've been on the stand against cops a couple of times now, and what you were, dealing with was definitely higher stakes than what I have. So I know I kind of have an idea of what it feels. Would you say that there's like almost like a thrill of like going against cops in that way? Like you said, you settled into like your act and you knew what you wanted to do, and you didn't feel that intimidation that is designed to be overwhelming to you.
No, sure, Mike, and I did. A lot of times. First of all, like, it's funny because I hear so much about, like, especially from the libertarian community, like, don't take the plea deal, blah, 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 blah. Even though every fucking cocksucking libertarian that I know has taken a plea deal. So a lot of that's said from behind computers a lot of the time and with this great ethical kind of thing in mind. But I was playing on their court. You know what I mean? Like, they jammed me up, right? They assaulted me. They threw me in prison. They made up charges. Multiple people perjured themselves. You know what I mean? And I was backed into a corner where I could either go to trial on a phony assault charge. And I'll tell you what, I said it to Derek Freeman the other day, looking at the way that they got into wording everything that they were saying, I mean, they could have really, like, who knows? Who knows? And I was not going to look at 3 to 5 years on, like, a fake charge. Like, we read about this stuff. We share articles about, like, stuff that happens to people. But, like, all of a sudden it was me,
Absolutely.
And
I was saying this to Mike earlier, and I appreciate so much your honesty in sharing all this. But I don't think people understand exactly on a human level what you were up against and what kind of – they don't put themselves in the situation, or Kokesh's for that matter. They don't recognize what kind of effects and how this is going to harm you guys as people. And you're showing this human side of it, and I want you to know how much I appreciate that, first off. But can you speak to that at all, about maybe how people may not be really understanding maybe what Kokesh is up against?
Well, that's a great point. And
Poe? I guess we lost Poe. Unfortunately, I'm sure he'll call back. But you know what? He's absolutely right about the never take a plea thing. It is something that's really easy to say. And you know what? In some ways, it's easy to do. I mean, if you're facing a traffic ticket, sure, never take a plea. Fuck that traffic ticket. But when you're facing, like I said, I was going up against something way less than him both times that I was against the cops. But it's an intimidating situation, and you're being faced with it's a very on paper type of thing to say never take a plea. You know what I mean? When I've literally had 2 different lawyers for 2 different court cases for 2 different police departments and judges tell me that me having the desired outcome is basically hopeless due to the level of corruption within the court and how favored, it is to cops. So it's a very ununderstanding way of seeing how you navigate that whole process when you're in the situation of being in court to say, oh, we'll never take a plea. It's just it's too
those
simplistic.
are people that'll never have to deal with the level of stress that a Poe or a Kokesh are under. And passing judgment. When Kokesh was let out, it should have been 100%, or however he got out, celebrate it. Don't question, oh, he copped out, he's a sellout, whatever. You don't know what this man is facing. They're persecuting him. Poe was being persecuted, and he's elegantly explaining to you how he dealt with that. And I can't wait for him to get back on and put some more insight onto that, because that's an amazing thing that you could never, ever get without firsthand experience, elegantly stated from somebody with a gift to, like, as he said, he's an entertainer. He was able to control himself up there and do exactly what needed to be done. Would you? Would anybody?
It's not easy, man. It's really not easy. I mean, I remember when the first time I did it, and not to mention, it adds more pressure when you are like that, because they're so not used to it. You know what I mean? They're so used to people just going into court and being terrified of not understanding what court is, the lack of knowledge about court procedure. You know what I mean? All of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I consider, I guess you could call it taking a plea for my most recent thing in court, where my lawyer basically was telling me that they're going to drop all the charges if you agree to just leave it alone. And you know what? I was down with that if that's what they stuck to. They changed it about 15 minutes before I went back into court and said, "Oh, well, we're going to stick with the resisting arrest." But I would have stuck with that because I don't want. I have a lot more that I'm trying to do than facing, ridiculous DUI charges that didn't even happen. You know what I mean? Like I can only imagine when you're in a federal court, there's that much more pressure of corruption because I mean, most of the stuff that we rail against is federal.
Yeah, and that it really is the state putting a gun to your head and making a decision at that point. Because I definitely, in the two situations I've been caught in, one with a DUI and the other with a drug charge, both times took the state granted program to just get it dismissed without ever pleading guilty and whatnot and paying a couple $1,000s because I didn't want to risk the possibility that I might go to jail for a year or I might go to jail for 3 years because at this point especially I don't even know that we'd survive if you ended up in a 3-year jail sentence. Like you might starve to death.
No, I agree. And it's funny. I was saying something about this to Moses earlier. Those of us who actively look at the world around us and see how bad the situation is and take that in and stare at that abyss as much as we do, we all basically come to the conclusion that something is going to give eventually. We don't know how it's going to happen. It could be, a singularity where robots start attacking us. It could be a dollar collapse. It could be martial law is declared after some government-made false flag event. We don't know, but we all basically agree that something serious is going to happen. And if I'm looking at, like what Kokesh is looking at, 6 years or 8 years or whatever it is, that to me is a possible life sentence. You know what I mean? Like, that's serious shit.
And I'll tell you what, Mike, after that conversation that we had today, you posted your best Facebook post, in my opinion, ever, which was stating the fact that these people truly should be celebrated and rallied behind for being so selfless, for going up against this kind of thing. And people need to start really putting themselves in the shoes of an N.A. Poe or an Adam Kokesh, and needing to identify and realize that they're human and they're facing things because directly they cared enough about people.
And, to kind of bring it full circle, you were saying earlier that everything has become entertainment. The news has become entertainment. And I think that kind of viewing these things through those glasses of how commonplace this kind of thing is. Somebody who hears, oh, well, N.A. Poe, local pot activist, is on trial today for this and that. It just goes right over. You know what I mean? The human element is totally ignored.
Yeah, people are able to just disassociate and not think of these people as regular flesh and blood. Again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where you don't really relate until you're facing down the barrel. You don't really understand what's happening until it hits home.
Yeah, and that's something I was trying to relate in that Facebook post because somebody was saying that I sounded like I was being pretentious and egotistical. I don't see that, but what I was trying to relay is that we take on certain risks and there's certain things that we go into this knowing that we're going to face, and that is something that I've really taken to heart through this whole journey as a path of my own personal growth in dealing with these things. You know what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, other people might be doing things, and it's not just like activists, pushing the world forward, but if you are an engineer, I don't think you're going to have the cops harassing you on a regular basis for that. I don't think that's going to get your. I know people who are. I'm not going to name names, but I know people who they have gotten phone calls with people who have voice technology to sound like their father and threaten them in the voice of their own father. They know it's not their father. I know people who have had phone calls and told them what they just said 10 minutes ago on the phone with family members. It's not a joke. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. The number one target of them are charismatic people who could rise and preach peace. What does that say about the structure? When all of your leaders who came up speaking nothing but peace, if they started to gain too much of a following, and again, I go to John Lennon because John Lennon is so important, and people will overlook this and miss this point. But John Lennon was coming back, okay, after his philosophical journey. The man has the power to move millions, and he's speaking against the war machine. And whoops, his new album, he's killed by a maniac, acting alone, random weirdness. Oh well, icon gone. What happened to MLK? These are not people who were talking about violent uprising or resist. They were saying give peace a chance. So what does it say about the state of the state? That those voices are the ones that they need to make sure to silence. That those are the ones that they want to make example out of. And if you become the change instead, if there is no one leader, as Kokesh once elegantly put, if you really take it this way, you do not need a leader. If still looking for a leader, maybe the Liberty Movement isn't for you, as Kokesh put it.
Well, I agree and disagree at the same time. Because, like you said, we have the natural cult of personality. Oh, wait a minute. We got Poe back on the line. Poe.
Sorry. Speaking of cult of personality, I think that they're still watching me because they cut me off of it.
And it was such a pivotal moment, man. I wanted to hear that.
We get hacked. We get harped.
Yeah, right.
We get it all here at the Big Plantation.
We got a white van with a satellite on it
I don't know
outside
where
our
I
house.
cut off at, but I messed up your flow a little bit. I'm sorry, but I heard that you guys are getting on track. So
yeah, no, we'll keep you on into the next segment. But
you want to recap?
We were talking about the human element regarding you and like how you were saying that people are keyboard warriors and saying, "Oh, never take a plea" and all that stuff. And we were saying how the human element of what it's like to be in the shoes of you in this kind of situation gets completely lost a lot of times.
Yeah, and it does. And as personalities, putting ourselves out there to try to raise change and putting ourselves on the front line, that's going to happen to us. And I think that when that happens, you need to think about your loved ones and your family. I said last night, I went to the Libertarian holiday party where they honored me with achievement, excellence in disobedience, which Jim Babb and Steve Sheets gave me, which I thought was funny. Jim Babb's been such an inspiration to me, throughout my activist career. He actually, about 4 days into Occupy Philly, he came to my tent and handed me a newspaper, and then we started talking. And Jim's been a confidant of mine for a long time, so that was an honor. But my point is I have two different families now. I kind of compare it to that Goodfellas scene when he gets married and there's his gangster family and his regular family. My regular family doesn't really know much about me anymore, and you guys and all the people that I've worked with, even with all our ups and downs and trials and tribulations, I do consider everyone in the activist community family, and the people that love me and know me in that community. They know what a struggle this was for me. Your average person on the internet, a fan of the Panic Hour or a troll or just someone out there, doing their thing. Respectfully, I don't give a fuck what you think, and I appreciate the support. And if me, going against your ideals of what someone should do, in that situation makes you not want to support my hard fucking work anymore, then you can suck my cock. And I say that with
Poe,
love.
could you speak to the Kokesh thing too, also on the same way? Because you can certainly, you're connected in that it was the same event that you both were first taken down, but you understand what he's up against too from the other incidents. What can you speak to the human element?
I bust Adam's balls a lot when I do interviews and stuff like that, because I think, in the long run, what he did was foolish, and he's going to have to give up a lot of years of his life now. I learned a lot from Adam, and one thing I learned about building an activist community or let's say a fan base is empowering those below you, empowering those, making people feel like a part of a group. Has more of an effect on people supporting your events. And I feel like the position that Adam put himself in as a personality made you kind of have to root for him or root against him, but never necessarily stand beside him. And I feel like he isolated himself, by doing something, like that other people couldn't back. I mean, if you're a gun owner and you have a couple kids or you have like a fucking job, like you can't go stand with this guy and like do that. And I feel like, yes, a lot of people are critical of what Adam's doing, but Adam decided to put himself out there by himself, you know what I mean? And I think that, sometimes it's that kind of ego that, that destroys people. And I think that's unfortunate. I mean, after Smokedown Prohibition, after I got banned from the Liberty Bell, if I wanted to make it about me, I could have brought it somewhere else. But you know what? It was about the issue. And I know we're talking about, what people think of people, and I said to Adam when I talked to him when he got out of jail, I'm like, dude, I understand whatever anyone ever does when they're in a situation is because, it's what's best for them. And, I think, Adam would never say it out loud, but I think, he regrets this experience a little bit.
I want to tell you right now, it's all brilliantly said, statesman-like almost, and I am 100% now for a Poe presidency run in 2016.
Maybe you could be Adam's vice.
I don't think I'm old enough, man.
Elegant. It was.
Yeah, well, I mean, dude, I'm not. I'm not trying to sound like a dick or anything like that. Like Adam knows that I come from a different, school of thought on things. But to the keyboard warriors, fuck you. I know you guys are always out. You're into entertainment. You're doing the radio show. You're doing actions and shit like that. Like, when people like you guys start criticizing my work, then I'll start worrying. Until then, I think I'm fine.
I think that's probably a good policy. I mean, we got about 2 minutes before the break, and I definitely would like to keep you into the next segment if that's cool. But you would say that you think Adam has any regrets. Do you have any regrets on how any of this has gone down? Would you go back and change anything, or has this been just a completely learning experience for you?
Well, it's been a great learning experience, and the only thing I would change was the way that I got arrested, because I think I could have made, like you guys saw those arrests. Adam was grabbed immediately by three guys. I was grabbed from behind and then tackled for no reason. But you know what? If I would have thought that they were really coming to arrest me, I would have literally just got down on my knees and put my hands over my head, and let them take the joint out of my mouth. But you know what? It would have never went down that way because all they wanted to do was mug me and Adam and take us out. They can say whatever
make an
they
example.
want.
I mean, that became all the clear
to activists.
Yeah, and that became all the more clear to me at, I think it was the next Smokedown after the arrest when they brought out the friggin' riot police. I mean, that was, to me, that was just, like, that blew me away.
Yeah, and I was a little critical of you personally, Michael, after that, and you know what? Things changed, because the thing is, I was so angry the day I was arrested that, I kind of was, jacked up, and, I was ready for, war, and then when they tried to fucking take me down, it was like, fuck you, you're not taking me down, you know what I mean? And,
Paul, please stay with us. We'll be back. Go up and get some break. We'll be right back. Big Plantation. This is Alex Jones. We got Poe.
Do you have a group or organization founded on the principles of personal liberty, health freedom, or accountable government? We invite you to check out Same Side Entertainment. Same Side is a source for activists and liberty organizations to connect with well-known leaders in today's growing movement for sustainable living, personal liberty, and sovereignty issues. Same Side has a variety of keynote speakers, debate panels, interactive web presentations, musicians, and liberty-based entertainment, as well as services for web design, graphic design, video, and photography. Same Side can help customize your event by connecting you to the best of the liberty and political world while staying within your budget. Get connected with leaders in the liberty movement like Tom Woods, Kevin Gutzman, Jack Hunter, Robert Scott Bell, Bob Murphy, Michael Scheuer, John Bush, Jordan Page, Tatiana Moroz, and many more. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and our website at www.samesideentertainment.com. Again, that's www.samesideentertainment.com. Same Side Entertainment, connecting you with the education and resources you need.
Obamacare. Fun. Cool. YOLO. At Obamacare, we believe in saying the words affordable health care so that young people will love us and sign up like lemmings. Sure, you pay 2.5% of your income in penalties, but young people don't have to worry about that because you don't have a job. Work sucks. That's why we at Obamacare want to trade your full-time job for a part-time one. So you'll have more time for fun things, like watching millionaire celebrities tweet about how affordable we are. Obamacare. Just like guys enjoy premium leather seats, so too you'll enjoy paying triple the healthcare premiums out of your new part-time salary. Speaking of guys, ever been on a mandate before? At Obamacare, we're full of mandates. But don't worry, big corporations get exempt, so you don't have to. It's fun paying for things you don't even use. Yeah, you work out, stay healthy. But come on, brah. Someone's got to pay for people who smoke, drink 85-ounce sodas, and live in a Barcalounger. So enjoy your premium hikes, young people of America, because everyone loves hikes. Obamacare. If millionaire celebrities can afford us, why can't you? A message from the White House Office of Obamacare. Propaganda to get young people to love us and sign up like lemmings.
Tired of living in a violent society? If every citizen was armed, no one would be dumb enough to shoot people. It's exactly the ethos our founding fathers had when they wrote the Constitution and then changed it, which is what makes it sacred now. Come mingle with safety-minded people like you at the Liberty City Gun Club. Our nation is still the world leader in one thing: armaments. Nothing says excitement like a night out with a small caliber semi-automatic weapon. Get social at the Liberty City Gun Club.
Well, yeah, it's getting tough out there. Yeah, no doubt. I work in home invasions, mostly. Some murder, occasional rape, if she's hot, or really bitchy. And I'm a huge advocate of gun control, absolutely. Every time I kick in a door or smash a window, I face the possibility of being shot and killed. Allowing citizens to own guns creates a hostile work environment for me and my associates. No one should have to work under those conditions. I say make them all illegal, absolutely. I mean, I break the law for a living. I'm a professional, so it doesn't really bother me. No doubt. No doubt.
Your local violent criminals work hard and put their lives on the line every time they attempt to murder, rape, abduct, or assault a member of the citizenry. They desperately need your help. With your support, there may finally come a day when a violent criminal can have his way with you or someone you love without the fear, anxiety, and stress caused by knowing there's a possibility his victim might be armed. Please show your support by voting for stronger anti-gun legislation, because criminals prefer unarmed citizens.
In 1997, a high school shooting was stopped by a vice principal with a gun. In 1998, a middle school shooting was ended by a neighbor with a gun. In 2002, a terrorist attack was stopped by a school guard and a teacher with a gun. After September 11th, pilots began carrying guns to protect their passengers. Let's give our schools and teachers the same option. Sign the petition at defendschools.com.
Thanks for listening to FPRN. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to start your own show with FPRN, advertise with us, or donate to the network or to your favorite shows, check out our website at www.fprnradio.com.
And we are back, continuing our segment here with N.A. Poe. So we were talking about, looking back on this whole thing and, your outlook moving forward now that this part of it is behind you. What happens with N.A. Poe now?
Well, Mike, I've been thinking about it, and I feel like I'm working with a film company in Philadelphia called Woodshop Films, doing this segment called We the Sheeple.
the spring is coming up. I think we're working on a Smoke Down Prohibition documentary. Today we released a 3-minute kind of teaser for a retrospective for the year that you can check out on the Panic Hour Facebook page. And dude, Mike, to be honest, and I was like, I could have cried a little the first time I looked at it, because like, Jesus Christ, man, like, you know what I mean? Like, so many people and things have like happened. I mean, Smoke Down was like, every single one was like a Super Bowl. It was like a different kind of thing every time. And, before the break, we were talking about 6, and I was just saying that I was a little bit critical of, yelling at the cops, but don't think, publicly, but don't think that I haven't had many a laugh behind closed doors watching you guys, back down, riot cops, But what happened with Smoke Down is it became a political thing. And look, I'm post-politics. I'm anarcho-Rastafarian. The only thing I can work on activism-wise within the system is marijuana, because we actually have a chance of changing things with marijuana. So, like, when the pot crowd kind of hijacked Smoke Down, which was like after I couldn't be at Smoke Down anymore, and let's be honest, it wasn't much fun when I couldn't be there anymore, but it was already turned into this kind of like battle after that. And I had to let the pot activists fight that battle, because they in the end can win, and we may be able to legalize marijuana. So a lot of the anarchist set gets critical of the work that we did at Smoke Down Prohibition at times, even real close friends of mine. And I'm like, look, dude, it's not mine anymore. You know what I mean? It's not about me anymore. It's about the fact that, like, maybe some people can actually, get out there and change this. So,
absolutely, but you get so much credit for this, Bo. This is an honest statement. I consider you to be the most achieved person within this liberty movement. I feel that you are the one who has made the most headway. You have the most success, and I thank you for that, because I understand what you've sacrificed for it.
And
I've
as far
learned
as
so
what you're
much
saying,
from the liberty movement. I mean, like, I'm not a full-on libertarian, but, dude, like, if I had to make 10 phone calls for, if some shit went down, at least 5 of them be libertarians, So I've learned so much. I'm not necessarily into the rhetoric, but I do my best to live free.
I'm with you, man. We're all about actually, I am anyway, talking about awake. I think we're all collectively on that page, right? Where it's about being awake. Just start there. If you're conscious, we want you. I don't want to see any lines. I want to see occupiers with the weed people. I want to see libertarians with the anarchists. There should be no lines.
Yeah, and as far as like, because I align myself with the anarchist point of view, and I realized that something I kind of had lost sight about for a while is that you kind of have to look at it in a realist sense and mix that with the hardline philosophy that comes with it. So there is a need to work within the system. And the way I see it is, it's kind of like asking somebody, all right, let's go to war, and then one person picks a sword and the other person picks a spear, and then fighting over which weapon is better. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, and I lost, and for a little bit, I lost sight of that. You know what I mean? In what, like you said, the rhetoric. I lost sight of that in the rhetoric of the hardline philosophy principles. You know what I mean? And I think I've learned from that. But that video, you know what? I honestly laugh at that video sometimes too, because on one hand, I think it's that kind of thing can be really powerful and it empowers people. But for me, I think you could just look at that video and tell that from my dynamic camera work angles that I pretty much lost it. You know what I mean? Like, I pretty much was completely enraged.
You don't have as much experience.
How do you think I feel? So I completely understand, and believe me, it just, the whole thing, was crazy. But the problem, in my opinion, with libertarianism post Ron Paul is that most people, like, when Ron Paul was in place, which I wasn't even involved in activism really in the time when he was, like, had the most momentum. But after he kind of went away and everyone adopted more of an anarchy philosophy, that's when libertarians stopped trying to work within the system. And I think that, libertarians are, like, literally the third party. They're the only party in my life, but the third party in America. And I feel like not having a leader and going to this like right-wing free market capitalism kind of anarchy has kind of made everyone like about themselves, and there's no unity within that community. And I feel like that I don't think it necessarily needs like a leader per se like Ron Paul. I'll tell you 1A, it isn't Adam Kokesh, but I think that in the very least, libertarians need to rally around a few core ideas and find things that they can change, not necessarily within the system, maybe within their community, maybe within their own communities. I mean, libertarians love airing their dirty laundry on the internet. This week, a friend of mine that's a libertarian may have done some shady practices with, drugs, and the guy was, pulled all over, around the internet, I mean, I feel like this whole libertarian bullshit that's going on over the past year has just been a joke, and it's kind of been a discredit to people that I really respect. I mean, you'll never see the Jim Babs and the Fernando Salgueros and those guys of the libertarian community air their dirty laundry in public. You know why? Because they're gentlemen. And I feel like there needs to be a return to some kind of idea of what libertarians are trying to accomplish, because this all for myself, own myself, Bitcoin free fucking world bullshit, isn't accomplishing anything other than, the rise of some arrogant egos.
Amen. Amen. And can I ask you a question then, Paul? Could you support then a candidate within this system? Do you believe that we can still fix this system from within it? Do you believe in us, say, Rand Paul playing the system?
I think that maybe, how about this? If we could legalize marijuana federally, right, and then really start regrowing economy within the United States, and then slowly but surely people in their 30s and 40s that were progressive started running for Congress and actually winning, and we took it back that way. But the Illuminati hijack fucking lizard people fucking drone bombing government that we have, there's no solution within that. I mean, when they put Kennedy's brains on the street in Dallas, that was the end of any kind of democracy in this country.
I agree, and that's where I think the libertarian stuff does work. I think Bitcoin is a testament to something that can come out of the free market of ideas to try to become a replacement.
That's a great accomplishment, Mike. I'm not going to take anything away from that. It's a great accomplishment.
But at the same time, I will say that I think there is almost an Occupy syndrome where there's no coalescence. You know what I mean? There's no coalescence. And that's why I don't waste time. All right, I'm done with voting. You know what I mean? Personally. I'm personally done with voting. I won't do it again. But I'll support a candidate. You know what I mean? If the right person were to run, to open up the conversation with voters who otherwise wouldn't hear it. But But I think you're right. I think there needs to be a coalescence of what are the goals and what are the steps that we take to get there.
In Pennsylvania, I never thought I would support a political candidate, but you know what? I've talked to John multiple times. I've interviewed John. For someone that's a politician, he is actually trying to change the law. And if I was a felon, if I wasn't a felon, or if I paid taxes, or if I gave a shit about the political process, then I would vote for John Hanger. But I'll publicly say, hey, if you're a fucking voter, and I've said it on the record, if you're a voter or you think that you can change things within the system, here's a guy for you. So I don't think it's impossible.
Do you believe in Dr. Paul's campaign for liberty?
I mean, I don't really know that much about it. I'm sure that I would.
Right. That's basically where I'm at. I'm pretty indifferent. But hang on, I want to kind of switch gears for a second, just because this is something that is important to what you've worked so hard for. There is a bill that is being written up right now bipartisanly in Pennsylvania with Senator Dalen Leach, who tried to pass a bill before to legalize marijuana, and Michael Falmer. Last I heard, as of a couple weeks ago, it was in that bill was for medical use only of liquid CBD, which for our audience who doesn't know, CBD is another compound within the marijuana plant. It is not psychoactive, will not get you high, but it does have a whole host of medicinal qualities. That's the last I heard, but I also heard that there's a chance it could include THC strains and stuff like that. Do you have any
They already have employed that. I wanted to just add to that. They already have used this on a 5-year-old. I believe it was out in Colorado.
Oh, they've used it on a bunch of people.
A 5-year-old. And it turned around her epilepsy.
It works. But the problem with this is And look, I want these kids to have medicine. I would never stop these kids from getting medicine, okay? But what politicians are learning to do is to find ways to cockblock real legalization. And one of those tactics has become tricking mothers with sick kids into that bill was written behind closed doors with no one from the marijuana movement involved. It was written by a mother with a couple senators. So they would block it to where marijuana will never be legalized. Like I said, I don't want to stop these kids from getting their medicine, but there is no reason with 2 recreational states at this point for us to have to take incremental steps that include the first part of legalization being in Pennsylvania without THC. What about our veterans? People talk about supporting the troops all the time. Well, you know what? These guys are coming home fucked up. They've done horrible goddamn shit, and they put them on medication. These guys want to smoke marijuana. People that have cancer want to smoke marijuana. Not to mention we have a rich history in Pennsylvania with hemp. I mean, there's, we should not be settling for bills like this, and the politicians are figuring out how to play around the legalization movement to try to use causes to actually limit the legalization of marijuana in the long run. And I think that we have to be vigilant in trying to make sure that that doesn't happen here. New Jersey has a really shitty marijuana law, and a lot of people can't get medicine. And Chris Christie is not changing that law. Once you write these things in the law and you're in bed with these cocksuckers, then you have to follow their rules. So we're working very hard to make sure that some THC gets into these bills,
Hey, Paul, how do you suggest a combating of the type of DEA tactics that took place in Denver, where they kicked in all these municipal marijuana stores and confiscated it, only to then go and redistribute it into the streets illegally and flood the prison? But, go ahead.
Well, the way to take care of that is legalizing marijuana on a federal level. I know that a lot of people that want to legalize marijuana that are libertarians, they say, tax and regulate, that's bullshit. Well, the thing is, this goes back to me talking about libertarians no longer having realistic goals. How is something going to go from being completely illegal, Schedule I drug, more dangerous than cocaine and methamphetamine, to just be able to grow everywhere? Idealistically, I agree with that. You know what I mean? But the thing is like, are we working for change, or are we working for like a fucking utopia that's never going to happen?
You know what? You took the words out of my mouth, because I've basically made that same comparison more than once about, do we want to be effective or do we want to be right? You know what I mean? And when we take that stance, we basically are stamping our feet in the ground and saying, well, I want it this way, I want it this way, and it's not working unless we coalesce to collectively, let's call it what it is, overthrow the government. And unless that happens, then the freedom from government that we expect with these principles isn't going to happen.
Yes, it's never going to happen like that. And especially if all we do is fucking stomp our feet, which you just put perfectly, And then the thing is, all that's going to do is get the 100,000 of us that care, we're going to look like assholes when the mainstream media spins it, and then we're all going to end up in fucking FEMA camps. And I'm not, sharing a toilet with you assholes.
Hey, real quick, on a lighter note, but a true story. Are you going to take part in our We Are the World video for Christmas? And would you be the conductor?
I'm looking forward to that. When Mike ran that by me today, I was like, yeah, well, you know what? And the sentiment behind it that I liked the most was like, and Heist does this a lot, is the idea of putting aside differences and uniting, for things, and I think that that's commendable, because there's not many people that are trying to do that. So having a fun, interesting way, and you guys doing this, it was a no-brainer. Once it comes together, I'm going to get my Stevie Wonder glasses out, or maybe I'll do fucking George Michael or something. I'll have to look through that video.
That's awesome. So, to go back to the PA...
Yeah, you could be the one dressed like Michael, man.
To go back to the PA legalization bill, I guess what I was getting at is, when I had first heard about this, Les Stark had posted about it, and he basically indicated to me that there was still a chance that this bill would include some THC legalization in it. So you're saying that's just not in the cards. It's not in there.
Well, what I'm saying is that they told these mothers that their daughters would have medicine within 6 months. One of them already moved to Colorado, and it's not realistic to say that New Jersey's marijuana law took 3 years to even see the light of day once it was passed. So I mean, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight. But the thing is, if we can elect John Hanger, who's running on a pro-pot platform, which I don't necessarily agree with, because if he thinks that, every pothead in Pennsylvania is going to go out and vote for him, he's going to fucking win. He's like, that's not going to happen. But, this stuff takes time to get implemented, and if we can get a Democratic governor that wants marijuana legalized, maybe we can scrap this bill, because to be honest, I don't want anything to do with this bill, and I dipped my feet into politics a little bit, talking with some people about it, and then we got knives in our back behind closed doors. And, I'd rather work with activists where, they'll tell you to go fuck yourself to your face. But these politicians, the more I meet them, they're scummy. But on good news front, and I haven't told anyone this, and I wouldn't want it, if you happen to catch it on here, then you do. I wouldn't want to promote it. But we're sitting down with city council right now talking about decriminalization in Philadelphia, where right now if you get arrested in Philadelphia for marijuana, you get taken and charged and stay overnight, and then you get put into the SAM program. Well, we're proposing a bill to city council where if you got busted on the street with marijuana, it would just be a fine. That's real world change. That's something that we can do where if that were to happen, people aren't getting cuffs on them for marijuana, and that would be a great step. We were in Boston for the Freedom Rally.
The precedent set in New York City for the decriminalization of a certain amount of marijuana? In your argument?
Yeah, and we already have the decrim. We have it here. It's 33 grams, but you do still get booked, and then you get put into the system. If it was down to a fine, 65% of the people that get arrested in Philly for weed are black. So, if we can take the cuffs off of, 65% of the black people that get arrested in Philadelphia, then that's 65% black people that aren't in the goddamn system. And that's the start.
Yeah, and I think that, I'm pretty much of the opinion of any means it takes to increase freedom. Like, that's the ultimate goal, right? With the overarching goal of us anarchists to increase freedom to the point where they're not there. So I think that I might not personally work within the system, but I would never get in the way of people who work in the system, and I support people who work in the system because we have the same goals. And I think that once you do things like this, you create an environment that is more conducive to the freedom conversation. You know what I mean? So if you can turn somebody into saying, well, yeah, you know what, it's wrong to be charging these people, maybe it should just be a fine, and then you realize that that's arbitrary, and then you can open up the conversation further from there, because the law, whether we like it or not, it doesn't really serve. It just serves to legislate morality, and people treat it as such. So we can then influence the conversation with this changing of the laws.
And it's not going. And the thing is, that's funny is like with the anarchist mind frame, right? We now live in a country where the government collects our phone calls. Okay, so we are a lot closer to being chained than we are to being free. And for people to set the goal of abolishing the government or whatever crazy shit you want to happen, nobody that has a mortgage and a fucking TiVo and a Volkswagen in their driveway is ever going to jump on board on that. And I feel like that's another thing with the Kokesh fiasco is, like, anyone that saw Adam get arrested that wasn't in the activist community, like when he was on the mainstream news, like, just imagine, like, a doctor on the couch with, like, his wife or something like that, right? It comes on the news, they go, look at that crazy white dude with a fucking shotgun, and they switch the channel. You're not changing any minds. At least with the marijuana stuff that we've been doing and the press that we get out of it, like, I never used to read comment sections. Like, there was an article on me in Philly.com this week that was kind of facetious and, kind of, like, shitty about me. And, the comment sections aren't that bad. For certain issues, if we embrace the public instead of alienating ourselves from them, then maybe we can convince the sheeple to wake up and get on board on things. But you know what? The idea of the abolishment of the fucking government is not going to fly with your average fucking Seinfeld watcher.
Absolutely. And, we only got 5 minutes left, so I wanted to give you a real easy question here. Can you we were talking before you called in. Can you sum up the entire cosmos and the fact that the pineal gland is the source of the soul and was worshipped for this reason back in ancient Egypt times, and that fluoride is used to dilute the true connection to the human spirit, and that if one would come into touch with their true consciousness or soul, which is located in the pineal gland, that we could all just have a collected consciousness. Could you sum that up in the next couple minutes?
Sure, Moses. And you know what? I probably would give it a shot. But those people, if you look at all the mind control techniques that are in place, television, sports, the fluoride in the water, to a certain extent, this is all stuff to keep people from reaching any kind of consciousness. And I think we've all grown to love each other so much, and hate each other so much, in the activist community, because we all have achieved that, awake state. And, it's like we're all going through our growing pains, with it. I mean, people I've worked with, I've had my ups and downs with them, and in the long run, we're all aligned no matter what, because we are awake. And, now our job is to get away from, the choir and start, scrubbing the pineal gland clean of the sheeple. And I think that, we're all doing, a pretty good job of doing that at this point.
Beautifully said.
Poe 2016.
And where can people find N.A. Poe? I'm not familiar with your work.
Best bet is the Panic Hour on Facebook, or you can just send me a message on Facebook. I entertain every lunatic at some point. I do respond to your messages. If you want help organizing, if you want, a dick selfie or something, whatever, just send me a message.
But please stop posting where to get weed on the Panic Hour page, people. Can't do it.
Well, yeah, I had a really great time talking to you guys, and I hope that I can run into you guys soon, and I'll let you know the smoke down date. And Heiss, I'd really like you to come back for the last one. I know, Moses, you're kind of out there if you can make it too, but let's close this in style.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Jinx. And we want to close out with some Gene Rosen for Poe, because we know that Gene Rosen is a hero, and I think Poe knows that Gene Rosen is a hero.
Gene Rosen 2016.
Ladies, I'm a very desperate
Producer,
man.
can we get some Gene Rosen?
My name is Mort, and I live with my mother, and I have very low standards. Oh, God, there's blood in my mucus.
That's not the real Gene Rosen, is
Yeah,
it?
that's not going to be on the campaign trail for sure.
School bus driver picked them up. I think she had just let off some kids or was in the area. And they came inside the house, and they started talking about blood coming out of her mouth. And they said, "What are we going to do for a teacher? Our teacher's dead." I mean, they were so distraught. I had all these stuffed animals from my grandson. I brought them all down.
This is your reality, folks.
I don't know.
Gene Rosen for president. He's a hero.
Gene Rosen for president, and scrub that pineal gland clean, fellas. We will be back next week live with the Big Plantation. Thank you so much for joining us.
For N.A. Poe, for Jamie Martin, for Alex Jones.
Thanks for listening to FPRN. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to start your own show with FPRN, advertise with us, or donate to the network or to your favorite shows, check out our website at www.fprnradio.com.